Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. We're going to continue our discussions on Yogamaya, and I will begin Kirtan now. And after Kirtan, I will tell you a little something that I've been reading about Bhaktivinoda Thakur, which you will find interesting and I think very encouraging to help us become more tolerant. Je Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Gopi Janavallava Girivardhari Gopi Janavallava Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Gopi Janavallava Girivardhari Gopi Janavallava Girivardhari Shodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Shodanandana Braja Janaranjana Shodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. One more time. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nitai go Premanandi, Hari Hari Bo, Hari Hari Bo. Maybe today we just do a concert, sing bhajans. Another time. So before we begin, I wanted to talk a little bit about the life of Bhaktivinoda Thakur because I've been reading it. And his youth is a mixture of happiness and distress. And this morning I read about a cholera epidemic, and he lost his his sister and his two brothers, his father, and the whole village that he was born in was devastated by cholera. And that village actually ceased to exist. Either people died or they left. And I believe most people died. His wife also died. He was married very young. His wife also died at a certain point. And he just had like a 10-month-old child. And he was also sometimes finding it difficult to maintain himself. There weren't a lot of jobs. So that's just one example of some of the troubles he went through. And, many people have the idea, well, if you love God, then you wouldn't have trouble. And here is the eternally liberated soul descending to this world and materially undergoing all these trials and tribulations, which is it's a real lesson to us that even the liberated souls who play this Leela on earth for our benefit undergo trials. It's not that he ever lost faith in God, but it's a great story of how he came apparently from not being Krishna conscious to Krishna consciousness. So I think it's an important lesson, isn't it? That even sometimes great souls have to undergo material difficulties. This disease killed so many people, so many of his relatives, friends. And just being in the material world, all the conditions of the material world that the pure devotee has to deal with. I don't know if you know this, but Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, he was a very strong preacher, but he became the enemies of the caste Goswamis because he was teaching that Vaishnavism is higher and that anyone can become a Vaishnava, which was destroying their monopoly on Brahmanism. Like only we are Brahmins, only we can do the pujas, only we can chant the mantras, etc. And they actually tried to kill him. And there's one parikrama where they were stoned. Devotees were stoned. So, we have this idea that, well, you become a devotee and it's like life turns into heaven. And I'm not saying that that doesn't happen, but when you're in the forefront of preaching, you will have enemies. And, when you're living in India in a village in the 1800s, it's challenging. And it's just you're dealing with the elements. And even the pure devotee who descends had to deal with that. So I thought that was interesting. And yesterday, a devotee sent me let me see if I can read it. So, I think it makes this point, and I don't want to repeat it incorrectly. So let me just try to find it. It's a bit funny, but true to some degree. I have to. It's amongst many messages, which I'm not seeing. Just give me 1 second. I'll check one more place. Anyway, it was something like, oh God, why did you put me in this rough ocean? Why'd you put me in the center of this rough ocean of difficulties? And then God says, because your enemies can't swim. Sometimes it's like that. We don't understand why Krishna does things. And sometimes, we do stupid things and we cause problems. And we think, why, Krishna, you're giving me so many problems. And Krishna says, well, if you didn't walk barefoot on the glass, you wouldn't have cut your foot. And if you a little more careful when you were hammering that nail, you wouldn't hammer your finger. But, there's this idea that, well, I'm a devotee, so that's not supposed to happen. Well, if you go barefoot and you don't look where you're going, there's broken glass. Even though you're a devotee, it will cut you, generally, unless you're Prahlad Maharaj. And in a Leela with Krishna being personally protected, but normally we don't depend on that. So I thought that was important. And so now we're going to begin reading. Are you ready? Are you all ready? I can't see you because we're not on Zoom. I'm wondering, should we do these classes on Zoom? Then we can see you. I could see your lotus face. Someday we'll do a concert. We will, I promise. I just have to prepare it. I'd like to have other musicians with me. So we are reading Nadia, this is page 40. And this is a devotee asking a question to Srila Prabhupada about Subhadra. Because as you know, in the Leela, we discussed that when Kamsa went to grab Subhadra, he was in for a big shock, and there was Durga. All of a sudden, Durga appeared. So devotee asked the question, Subhadra is the external energy? Is Subhadra in the spiritual world? Is Subhadra in the spiritual world? Prabhupada, yes. She's the external energy and she's in the spiritual world. Devotee, she's in the spiritual world, Prabhupada. No. In one sense, she is also in the spiritual world because she is the energy of Krishna. So Krishna's energy is also eternal. So wherever Krishna is there, his energy is there. But her activities are in the material world. Just like a king is there, and he has got all kinds of officers with him. But some officers engaged in the government house. Other officers, they are engaged outside the government house. The officers who have got engagement outside the government house, they may be sitting with Krishna, may be sitting with the governor or the king, but he has no business within the government house. Government house meaning the spiritual world. In the government house, there is a particular secretary, particular man in charge. Similarly, in the spiritual world, the energy which is working, that is called Yogamaya. And in the material world, the energy which is working is called Mahamaya. So Subhadra is Vishnu Shakti Paraproktam. So obviously, Subhadra, as Krishna's sister, is of the spiritual world, but her function is in the material world. And so we're going to read another conversation where this is explained. And I didn't know where these conversations took place, or if they're letters. I think they're conversations. Now Prabhupada says something which appears to be different. Subhadra is Yogamaya. And above he was saying, Subhadra is Durga, but Yogamaya expands as Durga. The spiritual energy is called Yogamaya, and she has 16 different expansions. Out of these 16 expansions, Subhadra is one. The Mahamaya of the material energy is also expansion of the energy of Yogamaya. And both Yogamaya and Mahamaya are equally important to Krishna, as much as any government department is equally important for functioning of the government. The police department may be horrible for the criminals, But to the government, it is a department as good as the university department. Similarly, Maha Maya is horrible to the conditioned soul. But to the liberated soul, there is no fear of Maha Maya because he is protected by Yoga Maya. It is stated in Bhagavad Gita when Krishna said the following, quote, I am not visible to everyone on account of being curtained by Yoga Maya. So when a conditioned soul surrenders unto Krishna, the Yoga Maya winds up the curtain and Krishna is visible to the devotee. So this is just reiterating something we've discussed many times in our previous discussion of Maya. But just for a little review, I think the best way for us to see it, or the most helpful way for us to see it, is that according to our desire, or according to the desire of anyone, the living entity, an energy will be provided, Yoga Maya or Mahamaya, depending on how the living entity wants to engage. So if the living entity wants to engage materially, then Mahamaya will cover. And that's an illusion, puts you in the bodily concept, etc. And if you want to become a devotee of Krishna and serve Krishna, then Maya will subside and Yoga Maya will overcome one. And Yoga Maya is Krishna's Swarup Shakti, his own spiritual energy. And so this diluting curtain of Maya is removed, and then you can see, I'm a servant of Krishna. I'm in a temporary body, eternal soul, etc., etc. And that's how you can engage in devotional service and not be bewildered, even though we're living in an atmosphere which is very easy, in which it's very easy to be bewildered. You can be bewildered at any moment. Bewildered by wealth, bewildered by opulence, all kinds of opulences, abilities, intelligence, beauty, education, and so forth. Everyone's bewildered by it, but the devotee isn't. But to the degree that the devotee is not Krishna conscious, then Maya can come and bewilder him. And that's why sometimes we find a devotee who is very Krishna conscious. We sometimes find there's a point in their life where they're not very Krishna conscious. And nobody can believe it. How this devotee who was so Krishna conscious, who was respected by everyone, has now left Krishna consciousness to some degree or engaged in material activity, engaged in things we could never imagine in a million years he would do or she would do. Well, when the curtain of Maya comes over you, you're not seeing yourself in the world the way you saw it previously, and therefore when Maya comes, then that forms the soil, so to speak, or the foundation for material activity, because there has to be a foundation there has to be a sufficient illusion, which is the foundation for material activity. And when you become a devotee, what happens is that illusion is being dispelled, and that's why one symptom, very common symptom of a new person, they'll say, I just can't go to work. It's just I don't want to go to work, or I don't want to go to school. I don't want to do what I used to do. Why do they say that? Whereas a senior devotee, one who's been around for decades, they don't say that, although they may have said it when they were younger devotees. Because there's this drastic shift, and then the curtain of Maya is just dispelled, and they're not seeing themselves as a material being anymore. And it's such a drastic shift. They just don't want to be part of that world, and they don't know how to be part of it and be Krishna conscious. So that's a symptom. There are other symptoms, but that's a common symptom. Why do devotees lose interest? It's just because they don't see things the same way, because Maya is not saying, you're the enjoyer, you're the controller, everything belongs to you. They're not saying that anymore. So naturally, the devotee becomes detached, even a very young devotee. So they're getting knowledge, they're hearing, they're coming to Bhagavad Gita class, they're chanting, which is enabling them to understand what they're hearing. Their vision is changing. They want to be Krishna conscious. Krishna says, okay, we'll bring Yoga Maya in. They don't see the same way. And then it's very easy to be Krishna conscious, going from this state of Maya, which we've been in since time immemorial, and then getting out of it sometimes in a few days. Sometimes for some devotees, in a few hours or a half hour, just seeing Prabhupada. That was it. The curtain's gone. It's just amazing. So that's what's actually happening. And if we become devotees and then we become inclined towards Mahamaya, then the curtain comes. And that's why you see someone who's very advanced becomes covered, and then they're acting like an ordinary person, and you can't figure it out. How are they doing that? This makes no sense. Everything's covered. Everything is forgotten. And Krishna says that. I cover you. Avritam means covered. Jnanam, avritam. I cover your knowledge. If you know something and you forget, then what do? I say, Mahatma Prabhu, can you play the piano? I say, sure. No problem. No problem. And then the covering comes. And then you say, can you play? And I say, I don't know how to play. That's all I can do. I don't know how to play. So it's the same way. We have realization, we understand Shastra, because we're trying to be Krishna conscious, and we want to utilize that knowledge. And if there's a point where either we offend a devotee, we become covered, or we just, for some reason, lose the desire, then Maya comes and says, okay, covered. And now you don't see the way you used to see. And if you don't see the way you used to see, you don't act the way you used to act. You don't feel the way you used to feel. You don't feel that inspiration. You don't feel that tendency towards spiritual life. So everything changes. And it's unbelievable. It's like looking at Cassius Clay, who was one of the greatest boxers ever. At the end of his career, his mind was damaged, and you're seeing a very different man. You know, he used to say when he was young, "I'm the greatest. Nobody can beat me." And then through so many fights, I think maybe one too many fights. A lot of these fighters, they fight when they're too old to fight, and some young boxer comes and they don't want to quit, so they're getting damaged, and some of them become paralyzed or their brain is damaged. They don't function very well. Therefore, you see this very vibrant young man. They're a little older, and they're this kind of, what's the word? Handicapped? Yeah, okay. I don't have a better word now, but you know what I'm saying. And you look at them and say, I can't believe this person is like lost his faculties. He's just, look at how he walks, look at how he talks. It's just a shadow of what he used to be, right? So that happens to a devotee when Maya comes and covers them. It's like everything they understood, everything they realized, it's no longer needed by them. They don't want to be Krishna conscious. So, okay, well, what do you want? Well, I want to enjoy the material world. Okay, well, we have to give you the consciousness with which you can enjoy the material world. Because if you want to enjoy the material world and you're in Krishna consciousness, it's not going to work. Because, a lot of times devotees say, I want to enjoy the world, but I know too much. And Krishna won't let me. I try to enjoy, but I know this is just going to cause suffering, and I can't enjoy, and I can't enjoy Krishna, and I can't enjoy Maya. My life is useless. It's destroyed. And so there's truth to that. If you get caught in that middle where you're not relishing Krishna consciousness, but you have knowledge, and then you can't relish Maya either. You try to go back into Maya, well, that didn't work. It didn't work before you were devotee, and you didn't even have all that knowledge. So if you still maintain realization in Krishna consciousness and try to enjoy Maya, it definitely doesn't work, because you need sufficient degree of covering to be able to enjoy Maya. You can't remember Krishna as you did as a devotee, a good devotee, an inspired devotee, and try to enjoy Maya. It doesn't work that way. So, but when you really seriously want to forget Krishna, then that's Maya's job, is to help you. And then she comes. And then as soon as you say, I want Krishna, then Yoga Maya comes. So it's the same energy manifested differently, according to the desire of the living entity, which thus proves many things, but one thing it proves is, can't blame Krishna for being in Maya. It's your choice. Correct? You all agree? I solemnly swear that when I'm in Maya, it is my choice. Yeah, we all have to say that. I can't blame Krishna. But Krishna, you put that beautiful woman, she moved next door. That's not fair. Yeah, but I gave you Bhagavad Gita. I gave you Maha Mantra. I gave you everything you need to protect yourself. Yeah, I know, but I never met a girl so beautiful as... Oh, so you want to enjoy her? Is that what you're saying? Well, kind of. Okay, so that's... You want to enjoy her? Then Maya comes and says, okay. But so many times Prabhupada said that being Krishna conscious is not difficult. And, you might be thinking, well, it's difficult for me. But what does Prabhupada mean? If you actually take shelter and properly and get absorbed, nothing is going to stop you. It can't stop you. There may be some, boulders in the way, but you'll get around them. That's Prabhupada mean. Okay, that's what he means. So I'm going to go back and look at your comments. So Sadhrupa says, yes, it happened to me. I lost interest in work after I started service for you. I was very attached to my job earlier and used to wonder how I will quit it. Yeah, and your consciousness changed. And also your emotional state changes, because when you become a devotee, you're so much happier. And so things which maybe gave you pleasure or were kind of neutral, now they're distasteful. It's just part of the process. And then as you mature in Krishna consciousness, you kind of integrate more so that you can do what you have to do and remain Krishna conscious. So Krishna Karshani says, I have doubts how advanced devotee can be covered if he's advanced. And why advanced devotee covered? Because unfulfilled desire that came out of overwhelmed by him or her. Yeah, there are different reasons. Well, the reason the story of Bharat Maharaj is there in the Bhagavatam is so you don't have doubts about this, because But if you just join ISKCON, or if you read, you don't have to join ISKCON, but you already are. If you read ISKCON history, you will see that what we sometimes call staunchos. I don't know if that's a word, but staunch devotees. Prabhupada uses the word staunch. It's not a common word. Staunch means like very strong, immovable, kind of, staunch. So we used to call them staunchos. So the stauncho Prabhus and the stauncho devotees. And then we have history that many staunchos gave up. And in the first canto of Bhagavatam, as Prabhupada says, many stalwarts, there's another word of Prabhupada, stalwart, like these are staunch, probably we use a little bit. Not so common, but stalwart, that's, I don't know, maybe that's British or past century British English. But Prabhupada says many stalwarts in the devotional line have fallen victim to wealth and women. Stalwart. All right, I'm going to look up the word stalwart, just so Krishna Karshani I can answer her question better, because that's the word Prabhupada used, not stalwart. Loyal, reliable, and hardworking. A loyal, reliable, and hardworking supporter or participant in an organization. So it would say dedicated. Many dedicated devotees have fallen victim. Yeah. So, stalwart, advanced. Well, advanced is relative. But when I say advanced, I mean someone who was stalwart, who was steady devotee doing service and didn't have any problems, at least didn't appear to have any problems. At least we couldn't see any failings in his devotional practice. Nothing, no indications by his speech, his qualities, and so forth. So that's there. So those are two things. Bharat Maharaj, he was on this level of Baba, so that really makes a point. And Prabhupada says you can fall from Baba. And Bharat Maharaj gave up his sadhana. And he became too affectionate to a deer and he gave up his sadhana. So when he gave up his sadhana, then he fell from his platform of bhava. So, the stalwart gives up their sadhana. When they give up their sadhana, then their consciousness changes. So it is possible. And then the question is, Krishna Karshan, he's asking why. Well, there could be so many reasons. Is it unfulfilled desire, overwhelmed? It may be unfulfilled desire, but in the case of Bharat Maharaj, it wasn't unfulfilled desire. It was he allowed the deer to distract him, and the deer was just newly born and was very helpless, and so he became very affectionate to it naturally. But the story is, you look at the story and say, well, what is the chance of someone becoming attached to an animal to the point where they give up their sadhana? Probably not much of a chance. But it makes a point that someone in the stage of bhava, if they become too attached to something, that attachment could distract them from their sadhana, and then if they give up their sadhana, then they'll become covered. So, you can look in your life and say, is there anything in your life that you could become so absorbed in that it would interfere with your sadhana? I believe for Maharaj Bharat, he actually stopped his sadhana. He became so absorbed in taking care of the deer who needed his help. And apparently he just wanted to do that more than sadhana. I think it was both practical and he just had that affection. And then he became so attached, that's what he was thinking of at the time of death. So, an extreme example, and you're thinking, well, we don't have examples of that. I have a dog, but it's like I didn't stop chanting my rounds when my dog gets sick. Okay, but it's an example that it doesn't have to be a deer. It could be something else, right? I become attached to becoming wealthy. We've seen that. And devotees make this huge effort to become wealthy, and they compromise their sadhana. We've seen that many, many times, haven't we? Or a huge effort to become something, whatever that something is. So the point is, they become attached to achieving something, and they're willing to compromise their sadhana, and that's when they have trouble. So that's that example. Unfulfilled desires, it could be. But most desires should be fulfilled in Krishna consciousness, right? Okay, so we have more comments here. So Christe says, how about the karma yogis? They are serving Krishna, but to get material benefit. Could be. Sometimes it's subtle. Sometimes it's gross. But we had discussed that on Wednesday, that at least they're serving Krishna, they'll become purified. And, Christe, it's different when you're on the way up than when you get there. So less, when you're on the way up, karma yoga is better than karma kanda. Karma kanda is just ritualistic activity to create good karma. But karma yoga is service to Krishna, employing your nature. Yeah, maybe you want something from it. Maybe you want liberation, but it's Krishna and it's spiritual. So it's up from karma kanda. But if you go from pure devotional service to karma yoga, then you've gone down. Then it's a problem. Then you'll become more affected. But if it's on the way up, it's a step up, so it's not a problem. That was the conclusion of the discussion on Wednesday, that because it's Krishna, you'll become purified. So, you may be doing something which you could validate. Well, according to this shloka, this is okay. But if you coming from a higher platform, then you've gone down. So even though it's okay for someone who's coming up, but not okay from someone who's already gone above it and now is coming back down. Well, you can say better than nothing, but it's your devotional service has been negatively impacted because now you're coming down. Well, at least it's devotional service. Okay, but you're going down. So, Krishna Karshani says, it seems that detachment at the beginning of Krishna consciousness is not real detachment, because after some time, in most cases, the person is coming back to their attachments. Well, my answer to that is, I mean, okay, I'll use my life as an example. Okay, so I become a devotee. I was telling my story, I think yesterday I was telling my story, that right up to moving in the temple, I wasn't steadily following the 4 regs or chanting 16 rounds. But I knew when I moved in the temple that I would. And that was true. I did. And I was successful at doing that. So I was following the 4 regs, the 4 regulative principles. I was chanting 16 rounds, doing service. So I was detached. I had given up my former activities. So you're talking about detachment on a deeper level. So if you talk about detachment on a deeper level, then there's truth to what you're saying, but it still needs to be clarified. But if you're talking about detachment on the level of action, let's say, like Krishna Karshani, I move in the temple, I'm 19, and let's say you were an advanced devotee that time, and you'll say, you're really not detached. It's all like, what did you say here? You're celibate now, and, you're following all these principles, chanting, but, deep down in your heart, the desire to enjoy women is there, or the desire to have drugs is there, and so on. So, and you're probably right, but I decided I didn't want to act on it. So now I'm not acting on it. And at that point in my brahmachari career, it wasn't bothering me because I wasn't thinking about those things. And I wasn't thinking, how do I engage my propensity to enjoy the opposite sex? I was just a single man, happy to be single and serving that way. So I think both things are true. I was detached, but inside, I wasn't completely detached. That's impossible. But at least I wasn't engaged in sinful activity. So, and then if I discover these attachments within me, but they're not deep, they're not strong enough to deter me from following my devotional practices, then even though it's like artificial, but still I can follow, and then I have to deal with those attachments. So then, okay, I realize, I've been a brahmachari for so many years, but I really would like to be a family man. Okay, so I can do that. It's all right. And I don't think I think the problem would be if I were in denial of that. Like, okay, so I'm living a brahmachari 5 years, and I'm thinking I'll be a brahmachari all my life. Then what you say is more true. Then I'm going to get slapped in the back at some point, and because I'm not prepared for it. But if I'm a brahmachari and say, well, I like this brahmachari life. At this point, I'm a young man. And someday I want to get married. Maybe in 5 years, I'll do brahmachari life. And after 5 years, I'll think about marriage. Then it's not a problem because I'm acknowledging my attachment. But at that point in my life, I don't have to act on it. It's not an issue for me. So I think the issue is being in denial about what's going on inside, not necessarily living on that level of detachment. Because if you know where your attachments are, you can navigate it and say, I know, but now for this next 5 years, I just want to do brahmachari life, and then I'll get married, and then I'll start, doing my music again or my art again or whatever it is I'm doing, or employ this or that in Krishna service, then you're okay. It's when it's, the problem is when you think you're more advanced than you are, then you get a big surprise at some point in the future, realizing, oh, I'm not as advanced as I thought, and I wasn't ready. Yeah, I'm strong. I'm going to fight Cassius Clay, what's the big deal? And then, in 3 seconds, he knocks me out. So that's a problem. But if you realize, no, I don't think I can fight him, I'm not qualified. Or if I'm going to fight him, I really need to prepare myself. So then it's okay. So if you realize where you're at, then it's not artificial, even though it is artificial, if you know what I mean. Krishna Karshana, when I answer questions like this, often I say, well, if you actually think about it, because Krishna consciousness is our natural position, and because we're not in our natural position now, in a sense, you could say, well, everything for us, especially in the beginning, is a bit artificial because there's no ruchi. There's no raga. There's no spontaneity. There's no taste. It's just, we have to do this because this is good for us. So that's artificial, right? I don't really like to chant my rounds. It's artificial. It's really painful. It's artificial, I don't really like kirtan that much. It's too loud. It's too fast. For me, it's artificial. So then what do? Don't go to kirtan. Don't chant your rounds. No. I do it anyway, even though it's artificial, because I have to do it. But I understand, I'm honest, I don't have a taste, but I'm doing it, and I know someday the taste will come. So as long as you're honest, I think you're okay. I think it's when you don't understand where you're at and you think you're more renounced or more advanced than you are, then that's when you're going to have trouble. And then I would call that artificial. Like we were discussing, I think on Wednesday we were discussing this verse where Krishna says you're pretending if you renounce, but inside you're thinking about enjoyment. And I was saying, I might be thinking about enjoyment, but I don't want to think about it. I'm trying not to. So the pretension is when I am volunteering myself to think of Maya, not my conditioned response to the environment, but I'm out there on Sankirtan. Why do you like Sankirtan? Well, I can talk to girls all day. That's why I like it. Okay. I'm the first one out and the last one to come back. Okay, that's different. Then you're a pretender. You're pretending to be this big Sankirtan devotee, and the whole time you're just enjoying talking with women and shaking their hands and maybe giving them a hug. And wow, that's a problem. So we have a question, or a question from Bhakti Lata. Obeisances to Mahatma Das and to all devotees. Thank you for spiritualizing my morning. Spiritualizer. Maybe we can make a drink called the spiritualizer. Now they have this thing called spritzer. We'll call it a spiritual itzer. Drink this mantra water, spiritualizing water. Okay, spiritualizing my morning here, always a pleasure to listen to you. I want to ask you, talk about how is it that Maya Devi to feel afraid of Radharani? Well, not afraid, but Prabhupada said that Maya Devi feels ashamed because, imagine your service, Bhakti Lata, was, your spiritual master said, I want to see who's really serious in this temple, so I want you to tempt all the devotees and supply them with whatever sense gratification they want. And so you go around with the devotees and say, what do you want? Is it pizza and ice cream at midnight? You want to go to the movies? I'll buy you. You want this or that? I'll buy it for you. Tell me what you used to like to do before you were a devotee. Let's go do that. How would you feel? And the devotees are forgetting Krishna and getting into Maya. How would you feel? You'd feel like ashamed that you did that. So that's her job, but she feels ashamed. But she has to do that. That's why it's said it's a thankless task. But she is an expansion of Radharani, so in that role, it's a difficult role. As you can imagine, if we had to do that. So, she's the external expansion of Radharani. So, like we were saying, Radharani for the devotees, Maya Devi for the non-devotees. You get what you pay for. Christy says, I remember. Yes, I remember. Just wondered how differently Yoga Maya worked on them in comparison to pure devotees. I lost track of our discussion. I have to go back. Yeah. How Yoga Maya... Well, if you're doing Karma Yoga properly, it's under the jurisdiction. It's devotional service. It's not Karma Kanda as material activity. Karma Yoga is devotional service mixed with some impurity. But the main thing is it's devotional service. Karma Kanda, there's no devotional service. It's just karmic activity, fruitive activity. So when you add the yoga, then now Krishna's there. So the main thing is the yoga, and karma is your action, and then there's your consciousness. And not necessarily does karma yoga always mean, a highly polluted consciousness. It may just be, I want to serve Krishna because I want to go back to Godhead. Technically, academically speaking, that's karma yoga because it's karma mishra. It's contaminated. It's actually jnana yoga. And I really like a nice house. Krishna, I'll go on Sankirtan every day for a year if you just give me a nice house. Okay, karma yoga, but still not karma kanda. So Christy says, you want to explain the difference between the propensities and attachments. Yeah. Here's the thing. The main thing is keep the main thing. And here's the main thing. We are all works in progress, and we're coming to Krishna consciousness from the conditioned state. And even if we've done bhakti in the past, the fact that we have a material body means we're not completely purified. So there's some conditioning. Some of us have more, some of us have less. But when you come to Krishna consciousness, you're educated to understand what pure devotional service is, so you can start adapting your consciousness to the right mood. Okay, I should serve Krishna. I should not want to be served. Krishna is the enjoyer. I'm not the enjoyer. We should serve Krishna for his pleasure, to make him happy, not to make myself happy, etc. So we learn all these things. And so our head gets it. And then we try to execute devotional service in that mood. While we're doing that, so many other things are creeping up in our minds and hearts. But because we're trying to be pure, we don't give in to those other things, even though they're there. And so because we don't give in to those other things, in the broad sense, we're engaged in pure devotional service because we just want to serve Krishna, because we're his servant and he's the enjoyer, and we want to make him happy, and we want to make Prabhupada happy. And that's why we do devotional service. You all want to make Prabhupada happy. You all want to please Prabhupada. It doesn't mean you're free from the desire to please yourself. It doesn't mean that you don't think sometimes when you lead a kirtan, I hope everyone acknowledges my kirtan and praises me. That way I can become appreciated. It doesn't mean you don't think that way. It doesn't mean you don't ever think about enjoying something you should not enjoy. But what it does mean is that when you lead kirtan, when you do service, etc., your raison d'être, your reason for existence is not to get something from devotional service, although it might happen circumstantially. Oh, Prabhu, that was the greatest class I ever heard. I never heard any devotee give such a fantastic class. And And you're like, okay, that's enough. No. And you're saying, no, stop it. But part of you inside is like, this is really nice to hear. I really like this. In fact, that's why part of the reason I give classes so I can become famous, So, but the main reason you give class, the main reason you give kirtan is for service. So, works in progress. So as long as Krishna consciousness dominates and we don't give in to the material side, by Prabhupada's broad definition of pure devotee and pure devotional service, we're engaged in pure devotional service because you're here to please Prabhupada, you're here to make Krishna happy, you're here to serve your guru. That's why you're here. Other things get in the way, but that's not why you're here. They get in the way. Desires come up. We're weak. But those are more of the accidental side, the conditioned side, not the premeditated side. Premeditated is I want to serve purely. So as long as that's there, everything's good. We're fine. And these other things will come up because we're conditioned souls. It's you can't get around this, The sheet's dirty. I mean, it's dirty. And it's going to take a lot of washing to get it clean. And you've had lifetimes to get it dirty. So don't think, once in the washing machine, that's it. This cloth is like really soiled. And once you acknowledge that I have a very soiled cloth, but this detergent of the holy name gradually will get this cloth clean. And one day it's going to be perfectly white. It's going to look brand new. And I just have to be patient along the way. Once you get that, then you're okay. You don't go crazy when all these desires come up because you know that I don't really care about those desires. They're just there from previous incarnations, because in previous incarnations, if you want to incarnate, in your previous incarnation, you cared about those things. That's why they're still there. They're residual. They're the alcohol in the barrel that hasn't been in the barrel for 100 years, but you can still smell the alcohol. That's all it is. And if you're ever engaging in devotional service and you get a smell of that alcohol and you're thinking, why am I thinking like this? This is ridiculous. I hate myself. I wish I could drown myself in the ocean. This crazy thought. A better way to deal with it is just to think, oh, that's the residual effect of the alcohol in the barrel. And I poured that alcohol out a long time ago, but I can still smell it. That's all it is. We're cleaning that barrel. It's going to take time. Someday, we're going to get it so clean, we're going to get all the alcohol out of the wood in the barrel, and we're not going to smell any alcohol. But until that day comes, I just acknowledge that's the reality. So this crazy thought is like, doesn't even bother me because I know it's just the leftover odor or aroma, depending on if you like alcohol or not. But I would say for devotees, we'll call it odor. The leftover odor of the alcohol. That's all it is. And you just understand that, like, oh, well, that's all it is, like, whatever. I'm not interested in it, right? I don't care about it. So you could have a million bad thoughts, but if you don't care about them, they're not going to bother you. They're just like, I wish I wasn't thinking of that. But it's just like, oh, there's a tree branch fell in the road. Okay, stop the car, get out. Okay, guys, lift it up, let's move it. It's just a botheration. It's not going to stop you from going anywhere. Okay, it's out of the way, get back in the car, let's go. That's all it is. But if you see the tree branch, oh no, another tree branch, I can't, this is so bad. Why are there so many tree branches? I have such bad karma, tree branches. Every time I go out, there's a tree branch. I'm like, Krishna hates me, I just give up Krishna consciousness. Tree branches are like destroying me. If you think like that, then all I can say to you is good luck, Prabhu. But if it's like, oh, a tree branch, why is the tree branch? This is windy out there and the tree branch fell down. Okay. Krishna still loves me. It's just a tree branch. And I move it out of the way and just continue. So none of your desires or bad thoughts can do anything to you unless you let them. That's the beauty of it. Have you ever thought of like a really, really sinful thought, a really horrible thought? Let me guess. Have you ever thought of a sinful thought? Let me guess. Yes. Did I get it right? Yes. Okay. I got it right? Oh, okay, good. All right. Now, you're still a devotee. How did you pull that one off? You thought of, yeah, Prabhu, I thought of killing somebody. Did you kill him? No. Why not? Because it's a stupid thought and I just let it go. Yeah, exactly. So, doesn't matter. That's just, where did that thought come from? Like, I don't know. 100 lifetimes ago, I was a Chatra. Who knows? And so that's how you look at it. And you go, this is a stupid thought. I don't want to think this. And you just go on in your devotional service, move the tree branch and continue. So if you take it like that, everything's good. You're fine. No problem. No problemo. But if it's like, oh, I'm so bad at this thought. I can't stop thinking of this tree branch. Oh, tree branch. Stop thinking of the tree branch. Stop thinking of the tree. Get the broom. Get the broom. Bang your head. Don't think of a tree branch. Don't think of a tree branch. Tree branches are bad. Tree branches are bad. Stop thinking it. You're so stupid. Why are you thinking of a tree branch? Just stop. Yeah, so then you're in trouble, right? But there's a tree branch. Oh, I forget it. Just push it out of the way. Let's go. That's it. Then you can be still considered being engaged in pure devotional service because it's just stuff popping up that it was cultivated. It's like sometimes you have a garden and things grow that you didn't plant because seeds dropped from a former harvest. You grew them before and all of a sudden, whoa, look at that. There's, squash growing everywhere and I didn't even plant it. Something like that. You planted this seed like 100 lifetimes ago and now in this life it's popping up and you're thinking, oh my God, why am I thinking of this? I don't even want this. And you go, yeah, well, you wanted it at some lifetime, right? So now it's like, okay, that's a stupid thought. Forget it. I don't want it. Now, so here's the thing. If you have these crazy thoughts, but you can recognize, no, I don't want that. Mind, I don't want that. That was another lifetime I wanted it. This lifetime, I don't want it. Then you're fine. There's no problem. But if you're like, why that thought? Why that thought? That's such a bad thought. I shouldn't be thinking. I'm such a bad devotee. What if I actually did what I'm thinking? Then what would happen? Then I'd be kicked out of ISKCON. You're going on this dark road. But if it's just, oh, that's a stupid thought. I would never do that. I don't want that. It's over. 3 seconds, finished. Get on with your business. So that's how you have to see it. And if you do that, you'll find it actually works. And it's an easy way to go forward in your Krishna consciousness. It's just a stupid thought from some other lifetime that I cultivated, some stupid thought. And I, today, on January 29th, 2021, have absolutely no interest in fulfilling that desire or thinking about it. This is like just popping up from another yuga of my sojourn in the material world. And then it's over. I just want to do devotional service. And then you start thinking about your service. And this other thought is just like, here we go again. But, what can I do? They're going to be there until I become more pure. That's all. So that's how we take it. Does that make sense? Yes? This is my experience. Yeah. This is because if you don't take it this way, you go crazy. And if you don't take it this way, you can get deviated. And I've always found that if you separate yourself from your mind, you became a devotee. That means you want to be a devotee. So if you're connected with that desire, when the mind desire comes, okay, there's incongruence. So which one do you want? The one that I want to be a devotee or the one I don't want to be a devotee? So obviously you want the one that I want to be a devotee. So you get this crazy idea and then you switch and go, no, I'm a devotee. I want to be a devotee. And that idea it has no relevance. There's no place for it in your life. But if it's like, oh, I haven't done that in a long time. This looks attractive, She's the right age and, the blue eyes, the blonde hair. Mm-hmm. Then you just start going down that dark road. And you know what happens then if you think about something too long. You don't have to know what happens because Krishna already told you what happens. Then the result is not good. Dayato Visham Punsam. You meditate on it, you'll become attached. And you're going to go down a deep, dark road. So it's like, okay, that's attractive, but I'm a devotee. So which way do you want your hand to go, right? To the heart or to the head? Oh, that's really nice. It'd be nice to have one of them. I haven't had one of those in like 20 years, you know. And then after a while, it's like, I have to have that. Let me out of here, you know. But Prabhu, you didn't finish your rounds. Who cares? I have to have that, right? But if you just, it's just like, you know, that looks attractive, but I'm a devotee and I've come for devotional service. That's what I want. And this I don't want. So this one just stays out of your head. But as soon as you contemplate it, goes in your head, comes right down, gets stuck in your heart, then you're in trouble. That's how it works. Hare Krishna. So, Krishna Karsani says, now, I may have answered what she's saying, but let's see. I witnessed many situations that illusory detachment, out of illusory detachment, a devotee was giving up everything, and after some time, we're ending up regretting it and blaming Krishna consciousness of not getting the degree or not making a career or not getting married. Yeah. Well, if you want to blame something, you know, God's always a good one to blame. It seems that this false detachment might be dangerous because out of this beginning false attachment, we end up believing Krishna consciousness. Well, I think maybe the devotees should get a clear idea of how karma works. You know, like, you know, you don't pay attention when you're hammering a nail and you smash your thumb, and don't blame Krishna for that. And that's how it works. You know, so you're like, now, one of the answers to this question, Krishna Karshani, because this is common, you know, if I didn't become a devotee, then this wouldn't have happened. You know, I gave up everything, and now look at me. I'm selling, you know, dolls on the street because I dropped out of, I would have been a doctor and a surgeon living in a mansion somewhere, and now I'm just selling some trinket on the street to try to pay my rent for my little stupid house and keep my old car running. Okay, I understand that, but you know, you made the decision to become a devotee, and you made the decision to be a brahmachari for like 19 years until you couldn't do it anymore. You know, you were like, if I don't get married today, it's suicide. So whose fault was that? Like, why did you do that? And why didn't you have the foresight to think, you know, maybe I need to be married. I should probably go back to school, get prepared. You know, so it's not, we have to take responsibility because not everyone who joined ISKCON ended up like that. Oh, no career, no this or that. It's not true. Plus, you have your karma. So, you know, you could be a devotee till you're 40 and go back to college and get a degree and become, you know, big professor or whatever. So, you know, your karma also follows you. So, you get what you get. But my observation is that when the devotee complains about something, if you go back to the situation they're complaining about, not everyone did exactly what that devotee did in that situation. So he's blaming us. It's gone. Yeah, the sannyasis, they preach like that. They brainwashed me to do this and that. But not every brahmachari did that. A lot of them, you know, got married 10 years ago and went back to school and everything's fine, or did whatever they had to do. So that's a dangerous philosophy, you know. Ultimately, we made the decision. But the sannyasis pressured me and this and that. But they pressured everybody, and not everybody did it. So why don't you take at least some responsibility for maybe not planning things out, or maybe not being realistic about what you actually need, rather than blaming ISKCON for all your problems. Believe me, without ISKCON, you'd have more problems. Hare Krishna. So, you know, responsibility. We get, like, we believe in karma, but we don't believe in karma. We believe in karma until we become devotees. And now I'm a devotee, I have no karma, so Krishna should just, you know, make my life like the life of a prince, you know, just sit back and eat grapes and, you know, sit on thrones and everyone's going to serve me. Well, that's not going to be good for your spiritual life. So obviously ISKCON has made mistakes and probably could have better guided those devotees. I definitely don't doubt that. And it's unfortunate because sometimes as devotees, we don't know. We're just trying to do what we think is best. But still, it's always best to take responsibility and not blame anyone or anything for ultimately the decisions we make. I mean, after all, you decided to join ISKCON. So if ISKCON's at fault and you decided to join ISKCON, then what responsibility do you take? Well, I stayed in ISKCON too long. Okay, you could, that's not the reason you have problems. But if it is if you want to say it's the reason, well, you decided to stay that long. Even if ISKCON is the problem, you decided to join it and stay in it. So you can't just wash your hands of responsibility. And it's not like right now you can't do something to improve your material condition if you need to, right? Anyway, I don't know if that answers your question. That was one comment that could be made. Kaylee says, I'm definitely a work in progress. It is validating to hear you say that. I believe I have heard you say in the past that if we give Maya a crack, she will come in as a flood. Something like that. Yeah, that's a good one. I don't know if I said it that way. Maybe I did. Give her an inch, she'll take a mile. It seems like maybe devotional service makes it easier to patch the cracks. Yeah. Makes it easier to prevent them from forming, but won't necessarily stop the flood when the cracks appear. It depends on you. We already come with cracks, but as long as we don't walk on the cracks, so the cracks get worse, we'll be okay. And then over time, the cracks will heal. They'll come together. So let's say there's a crack, and we know that by nature's process, it's like a scab. It will heal. But you're always like scratching the scab, so it never heals. So it's something like that. Because we're conditioned souls, there's so many cracks. But are you putting salve on the crack, or are you scratching the crack? In some cases, you just ignore the crack. That way you don't scratch it, and then it'll heal by itself. So it's the same principle. Where's your mind? What are you putting your mind on? And this is a real challenge because we're conditioned souls. We have desires. Sometimes we're envious. Sometimes we want things we don't need. Sometimes we're lusty. Just go down the list. Angry, resentful. And that's to be expected. But if you learn how not to give in to those things, you'll be okay. It's when we give in to those things we're in trouble. So those are the cracks. Don't give in to them. Then the cracks will heal. If you give in to them, you're scratching. You're scratching the scab. Okay, we changed the example. Cuts. The cracks have become cuts. Cuts in your skin. Yeah. Anyway, if you execute devotional service well, then you'll, whatever we're talking about, you'll realize every day that, yeah, Maya is not a problem for devotees. Maya is a problem for devotees who are in Maya. That was a profound statement. Wow. I should write that one down. Huh? Make a t-shirt. Everyone's going to look at it. Maya is only a problem for devotees in Maya. Huh. What does that mean? And you can say, Mahatma Prabhu gave 3 months of classes on this one point. Really? Maya is only a problem for devotees who are in Maya. Wow, that's profound. If I ever said anything profound, that must be it right there. But I think that answers your question, Kaylee, although it sounds kind of like the ultimate duh statement of the year. But there's unlimited layers of realization and truth under that. Krishna Karshani says, what about sense gratification in the mind? We may not act following our sinful thought, but we may enjoy in our minds. Da-da, da-da, da-da. Prabhus, you won't believe this, but I have a device that can take what's in your mind and digitize it into video. And I did that yesterday, and I have everything you're thinking of as a file on my computer. Ah! Now, you might say, wow, really? Wow, that's fantastic. you're going to be watching videos of Leela all day, because that's all I think of. And someone else is going to say, "Oh, don't watch it. I'm so embarrassed. You're going to see what's in my mind." And I'll say, "I don't have to watch it. I already know what's in your mind. I have a mind also. I know what's in my mind. I know what was in my mind when I was a young devotee. I can pretty much guess what's in your mind." It's the same point I made before, Krishna Koshini, that, in one sense, it doesn't matter what's in your mind, because so much of what's in your mind just shows up unconsciously. It's like there, you had nothing to do with it. It's like, "Hello, here I am. See that over there? You want to enjoy that?" And I'm like, "Who are you? Where'd you come from? I didn't invite you over here." "Oh, I'm your mind, and you thought of this like 100,000 lifetimes ago. I just, forgot to remind you. Here I am." That's different. You could you do a little video like that. These little characters come, they come around your mind, and there are all these different thoughts. "Hey, you should do this. This will make you happy. You should give up your wife and go to the neighbor's house, and beat up her husband and, run off with her, like, who are you? "Oh, you had this all figured out like 3 lifetimes ago. You just died too young to be able to do it. So let's do it now." So that's kind of the way the mind is, right? Isn't it? So, if you can do devotional service, if you can ignore that and do devotional service, I wouldn't call you a pretender. I'd call you a superstar. It's the pretender when it's like, okay, what's the number of that thought? Okay, this is going to be the video, right? So I'm going to get my phone ready. Okay, is my phone ready? Thought number 106-A3. Okay, we're going to go on vacation, and then we're going to do blah, 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 blah. And the thought goes, "Okay, gotcha." And then the thought appears in your mind. That's pretension. But if that thought just shows up, and you're thinking, "Why did you show up? I didn't call you. Why did you show up? I don't need you." And you think, just like, "Go away. Don't bother me." That's not pretension. That's reality. You can't avoid that. That's just the way it is. It's when you're chanting Hare Krishna and you're meditating on sense gratification, when you're leading the kirtan and you're thinking, I'm the number one thing that ever happened to ISKCON, and everybody just must think I'm so great. Yeah. Then, it's like you're acting like a pure devotee, and inside you are the opposite. That's pretension. Your pretension is your mind is thinking about material enjoyment, and you're doing devotional service. And you want to get that through devotional service. That's your ultimate goal. But if it's just thoughts are coming uninvited from past lives, and you're just like, "Okay, whatever, I'm doing devotional service, You can think that if you want, but I'm doing devotional service, so I'm not going to bother with you." Then you're a hero. You're a superstar. You're the man or the woman. You be the man. You be the woman. And then don't sit around and, take this thing and bang your head. "I'm so bad. I'm so bad. I'm so bad. I was thinking about sense gratification. I'm so bad. I'm so bad." Well, stop thinking about sense gratification. "No, I'm so bad. I can't stop thinking how bad I was." When you think about how bad you were, what are you thinking about? "I have this bad thought. It's such a bad thought. I shouldn't think bad thoughts." So what are you thinking about? You're thinking the bad thought, right? That's like so stupid, isn't it? I shouldn't think that thought. So if I shouldn't think that thought, then stop thinking about it. "No, but I'm a bad person for thinking that thought. So that thought that I'm a bad person for thinking is what I'm thinking about right now." Hare Krishna. We could make an amazing video. It would be so funny, wouldn't it? The mind, how the mind works. But when that thought comes and it's like, "Oh, whatever, then it's just like it goes away. Isn't it? You have experience. And so if it comes, just like, don't lament, don't beat yourself up, don't think, "I'm such a rascal, I'm such a pretender." It's just, I'm a superstar, because the thought comes and I don't do anything. I'm a superstar, yes. Not that I'm a horrible, horrible, terrible, rascal, demoniac, pure devotee pretender because I have this thought, because I thought for 3 seconds about something other than Krishna. No, it's not like that. Is it? No, you're a superstar because you thought about something for 3 seconds and you stopped thinking about it and you went on with your devotional service. That's how you should think. You're all here doing devotional service. You're all superstars. So superstars don't beat themselves up. You have no right to beat yourself up because you are a superstar. If you weren't a superstar, you wouldn't be here, right? Now, in your humility, you might say, I'm such a rascal. For 1 nanosecond, I thought about something other than Krishna. Yeah, well, that, a pure devotee is going to think like that. But until you're a pure devotee, if you think like that and it doesn't help you, what's the point? Now, it may help you because you're very advanced and think, I shouldn't think of anything but Krishna. So, but for most devotees, it's like, just don't think about the thing that you don't want to think about. That's another profound statement. Write that down, everyone. Don't think about the thing you don't want to think about. What the? Huh? Of course I wouldn't want to think about the thing I don't. Yeah, then why you keep beating yourself up for thinking about it? Okay, Sarveshwar has a question. I didn't skip your question, did I? It comes after the question I was just answering, no? Well, anyway, I'll answer the question with your name on it. And if there's a question before that, you let me know. How does Krishna in our hearts look at those stupid thoughts? What does he feel? Sometimes thoughts may be gross or embarrassing to ourselves. And the thought goes, oh my God, what will Krishna think of me now? Krishna looks at your response to those thoughts. So if you want to know what Krishna thinks about your crazy thoughts, you're thinking, oh, I want to be a prince with a harem of 1,000 ladies and kill all my enemies. And you're like, what am I thinking about? Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And Krishna says, he's my man. He's my man. Because no matter what his crazy mind says, he continues with devotional service. He doesn't give up. That's what Krishna's thinking about. But when you're like, a harem with 1,000 women and killing all my enemies, what a rascal I am. How could I think of a harem with 1,000 women? Oh! And Krishna thinks, you are an idiot. Stop thinking about it. Just chant your rounds. So now you know how Krishna thinks. Does that make sense? Sarveshwar? Gayatri says. Gayatri agrees. The thought goes away if we don't overthink it. What if we are bothered by bad thoughts and we tend to follow them and dwell on them and even enjoy them? Yeah, well, then and then you say, Krishna Karshani, but Lord Chaitanya said it's not sinful if you think about it. It's only sinful if you do it. Well, in that case, I'll just think about sinful things all day because I won't get the karma. All right, so let me ask you a question. If you think about doing sinful things but you don't do them, how is that going to work for your Krishna consciousness? And you think about it and go, yeah, not too good. All right. Second question. If you think long enough about doing sinful things, what's going to happen? I'm going to do them. Yeah. Okay, you got both questions right. So that's the answer. You answered your own question. Not a good idea. Because the goal of Krishna consciousness is to think of Krishna. The goal of Krishna consciousness is not to think of sense gratification, but just don't do it. Prabhu, what are you going to do today? I thought I'd think of sense gratification and not do it. Oh, that sounds like a good program. Sometimes you have to look at what you're thinking and just kind of spin it around and see how stupid it is. So, what if I'm thinking of sense gratification, but I'm not going to do it? What should I do? Stop thinking about sense gratification and think about serving Krishna. I think that's obvious, isn't it? That's what it means to be a pretender. You're voluntarily thinking about it. And if you're not voluntarily thinking about it, then naturally you'll try to avoid thinking about it when the thought comes. But if you're voluntarily thinking about it, you are in the danger zone because you may become attached to doing it. Don't trust yourself, Krishna Karshini. That's all I can say. But it's nice to think about it. I mean, I gave a devotee when I was 17, and there's so much I gave up. At least let me enjoy it in my mind. What's that like? It's a fast day. You take a bath, you go underwater, and you're fasting from water, and you drink water. That's the example that's given. Fasting by drinking water underwater because no one will see that you drank water underwater. Nobody knows what you're thinking. Give me some enjoyment. I gave up everything. Let me at least think about it. That's not the goal of Krishna consciousness. The goal of Krishna consciousness is not to see like how close I can get to Maya and still be Krishna conscious. Mahatma Prabhu, I have a question. How close can I get to Maya without getting burnt? Very good question. No, that's a very bad question. Why would we want to answer a question like that? Well, you could try getting this close and see if you get burnt. And if you don't get burnt that close, then you could try getting a little closer. And, just get close enough. And when you start feeling the heat, then back off a few inches and then you're good. That's not our philosophy. Our philosophy is, how can I use in Krishna's service my intelligence, my abilities, my desires, etc. Not how close can I get to Maya and enjoy independently of Krishna without getting burnt. How can you enjoy independently of Krishna without getting burnt unless you engage that in Krishna's service? You can't. You will get burnt. So, and if you're sitting around dreaming about sense gratification, I have a picture of a devotee, he's chanting his rounds, he nods out, and the thought bubble is there, and it's like he's on the beach, all these beautiful girls around him, and the conclusion is, you must not be getting a taste from chanting Hare Krishna. That's, so if you're dreaming about sense gratification, that's a symptom of a lack of taste in bhakti. And the solution is chant without offense, read without offense, serve without offense, in the proper moods that we're directed to, and you'll get the taste, and then you'll stop dwelling on sense gratification. And the fact that you're dwelling on sense gratification means there's a big lacking in your life. And you need to fill that lacking with Krishna consciousness, not with sense gratification. All right, sense gratification in Krishna consciousness, if you say, no, but I need some sense gratification. All right, in Krishna consciousness, but not independent and not outside the jurisdiction of what's allowable. So it's a symptom. It's a symptom of a problem. Your question reveals a symptom of a problem. So rather than think, how close can I get to Maya and not get burnt, think, well, the fact that I'm thinking like that is the problem. Getting burnt by Maya is only a consequence. Like sometimes someone says, I have this problem, and a coach will say, that's not the problem. It's a symptom of the problem. The problem is something else. So a lot of times we have to go deeper. You say, well, the problem is that I'm always thinking of sense gratification. Well, it's a little deeper. Why are you thinking of sense gratification? Well, I'm kind of slack in my sadhana. I don't really like to chant japa. I wasted a lot of time gossiping or whatever. That's the problem. What you're talking about is that thoughts and dwelling on it, that's the symptom of the problem. So it's always good to ask yourself that question when you have a problem. Is this the problem, or is this the symptom of a deeper problem? And usually the answer is, yeah, it's a symptom of a deeper problem, so then find out what the deeper problem is. Does that make sense? Makes sense to me. Of course, I always say that, right? That's kind of a stupid thing to say, isn't it? Does that make sense? Well, it makes sense to me. Well, I want it to make sense to you. It doesn't. Of course, it makes sense to me. I said it. But does that make sense? Give me a bunch of hearts or something to let me know it made sense. And if it didn't make sense, give me a thumbs down so I'll explain it again. Maybe I don't see your emoticons anymore when I'm on my computer. Yeah. I think another way to answer your question, Krishna Karshani, is if you want to be Krishna conscious in this lifetime and are willing to do whatever you have to do to be Krishna conscious in this lifetime, it clarifies everything. All these questions are they're very clear. You understand. Oh, okay, we got some applause there. Good. Thank you. So, when you want to be Krishna conscious, then it just, the right answers will come to you. It clarifies it. Is this right or wrong? Oh, it's obvious. So, you know what really I find interesting, even bothersome, is that you look at people who are not devotees, who have goals that they work very hard for. And they're very determined, they're very focused, very intentional, and very disciplined. And you've seen people like that. They exist everywhere. Every successful person is very disciplined. They're strategic, intelligent about what they need to do to be successful, what they need to avoid to be successful. And thousands, millions of people are doing this. Otherwise, they wouldn't be successful. Then you get devotees like, well, so hard. And what about this? And, we've got to be real. And, it's like, I'm like, oh my God. If you said that in regards to your material goals, you'd be living on the street begging. It's like, it doesn't make any sense. That's what the losers say, isn't it? Not the top echelons of society. I want to be rich, but it's so hard and so much work. And I have to get up early and I'm a night person. No, you don't hear that from successful people, right? You hear that from people living on the street. I don't want to work. It's too much. Society's messed up and, I'm just protesting against it. Well, how's that working out for you? Well, I live here. I got this doorstep. It's fine. So sometimes it's good just to analyze your thinking and say, well, if I took that thinking and put it to the test materially, where would I end up? And say, probably on the street. Yeah. So are you on the street in your Krishna consciousness? Are you on a high rise? Are you the CEO of a company in your Krishna consciousness? It's, it's like the same principles. Enthusiasm, determination, patience, all that. Those are principles that are required for success in anything. So it's good to do that. Okay, Marco said, amazing how you manage to make our failure scenarios extremely funny, easy to understand, useful for us. Situations could otherwise make us frustrated. Yeah, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Yeah, anyway, like I was... yesterday at the end of class, I was telling devotees I think four reasons why I'm funny, other than the fact that it's just natural for me. But one of the reasons is that I think it's very powerful to laugh at ourselves. And I think it's very powerful to laugh at how Maya works because it detaches us. Because sometimes it's easier to get objectivity when we laugh about something. Because it's easier to acknowledge something while you're laughing. And if it's too serious, oh, I'm not like that. How dare you say that I'm like that? But if you just make a joke out of it and you go, yeah, I'm like that. It's easy. You see yourself. You can laugh. So sometimes it's really helpful to laugh about how Maya works and how stupid we are, because it actually helps us and it detaches us. So that's one of the reasons that I do it. It's easier to admit something if you laugh about it, right? Prabhu, did you ever think like this, do this and that? You're like, Yeah, and you're just laughing. But if I was real, did you ever do that? Well, yeah, well, maybe, you don't want to admit it. It's harder to admit, right? Hare Krishna, isn't it? So now you want to know the other three reasons why I joke. Well, one of them is I'm a cowherd boy. And the other one is sometimes Krishna consciousness is too serious for me. We have to take it lighter and make it fun. So, okay, class is over. We're going to cry in separation now. Oh, class is over. What are we going to do now? So what you're going to do now is when you have a crazy thought, you're going to go, that's a crazy thought. And you're just going to go, but I'm doing devotional service despite the crazy thoughts. Doesn't bother me. I can have all the crazy thoughts in the world. I'm just going to do devotional service. Crazy thoughts, you can haunt me as much as you want. It's not going to do anything to me because I don't care about you. I'm just going to do devotional service. And if you think like that, guess what happens? The crazy thoughts go away. They don't bother you because they're like, well, I'm not going to bother this guy. He doesn't like me. Right? Isn't it? So if you like crazy thoughts, they'll come back. If you don't like them, they'll find someone else to bother. So, you decide what you want to do. Hare Krishna. Yes. Hare Krishna. So Tanya got to laugh because there was no one in the office. That's good. Okay. Thank you, everyone. We will see you sometime. Oh, we're having Kirtan tomorrow, 11 o'clock. They're having a Kirtan Fest. They're having a Radhadesh Mellows. I guess I have to tell Radhapriya about it. Goes from 9 to 1 p.m. in Alachua. And I'm going to do 11. So, let's see what else is going on this weekend. China on Sunday, and then I'm doing a 5 p.m. Sunday feast in Boston on the topic of two people being incompatible. What do they do? How do they get along? Okay, we have one more comment. Annalie says, I struggle to laugh about my failures, and I always take everything too seriously. Yeah, I really appreciate it. Yeah. It's good to laugh at yourself, because if you don't laugh, you're going to probably commit suicide, right? If you don't laugh, you're going to kill yourself. So, I told you the story. I want to tell you the story. It's one of my favorite stories. So we're in this seminar, and everybody's like just being totally vulnerable about everything they're ever ashamed that anyone would know, even their mother. They're asked to tell the group. So everyone's, revealing their darkest secrets, right? And there's one second generation there, and he had a horrible upbringing. His father was a devotee, but sometimes his father was an alcoholic. He would go in and out of alcoholism. And he lived with his father for many years, and his father didn't have a place to live. They'd sleep in the van, they'd sleep in a hotel, they'd sleep under a tree. And he grew up this way for many, many years. So you could imagine how difficult his life was. And, as a young kid, he was very angry and not disciplined and had so many emotional problems. So he came to this workshop, and everybody was being vulnerable about their problems. It's all adults. He was the youngest one there. So we're all sharing, I'm like this, I'm like that, I've done this, I've done that, I think like this, I think like that. Then it comes to his turn, and he's cracking up. He's laughing. And we're like, what are you laughing about? You came into this workshop looking like a light bulb with black tape on it. You were like so dark and dreary. What are you laughing about? And he says, I thought I was messed up. You guys are way more messed up than I am. And he was just cracking up. And it made him feel so good because he thought he was uniquely messed up until he realized we were worse than him. So sometimes it really helps to know that I'm not uniquely messed up. Like everybody's messed up. And how do we know that? Because we're in the material world. We're still here. If you weren't messed up, you wouldn't be here. Right? So, the problems you're struggling with every day, guess what? Everybody is. You're not like special. Prabhu, I hate to say this, but you're not uniquely fallen. You're just one amongst hundreds of thousands of fallen souls, millions of fallen souls. So, don't get so depressed about your condition. It's just normal. And the only way you're going to transcend it is not to be depressed about it and just be enthusiastic about Krishna consciousness and tolerate that other side. It'll go away eventually, believe me. It won't bother you. So that's my personal experience. I encourage you to think that way. And don't worry. Whatever one of you think you're the most fallen in all the three worlds, I can guarantee you someone's more fallen than you. I can guarantee you someone has more trouble than you. You're not uniquely fallen. And if you can't think of anyone, just think of Jagai and Madai. They beat you. They have way more points in the sinful activity department than you'll ever have. And they became pure devotees. If they can do it, you can do it. Why not? By the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, you can do anything, right? That's our philosophy. Hare Krishna. Nice to see all of you. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. I am going to go now. Gaur Premanandi. Hari Hari Bol.